The rain was hammering down on the asphalt when Marcus saw 12 black SUVs rolling slowly up his broken driveway, engines rumbling like thunder, windows tinted so dark he couldn't see a single face inside. His heart stopped. His hands went cold. He didn't know whether to run inside and lock the door or stand there and face whatever was coming. All he'd done was help someone. That's all. Just helped a stranger on the side of the road. And now this. Before we go any further, I want to invite you to subscribe to The Black Voices. This channel is built on stories like this one. Real voices and real moments that deserve to be heard. Hit that like button if this story moves you, and drop a comment below about a time someone showed you unexpected kindness. Your voice matters here. Now let's get back to Marcus. Marcus had been struggling for a long time. Not the kind of struggle people see from the outside. Not the kind that makes headlines or gets sympathy. It was the quiet kind. The kind that sits heavy on your chest when you wake up at 4 in the morning. Because you can't stop thinking about bills, about your kids, about whether you're doing enough. He was a single father raising 2 daughters, 9-year-old Amara and 6-year-old Zoe, in a small rental house on the east side of Durham, North Carolina. The house had chipped paint and a front step that wobbled when you walked on it. The yard was patchy grass and red clay, but it was home, and Marcus worked himself to the bone to keep it that way. He'd been an automotive technician for nearly 15 years, back when he worked at a dealership and had steady pay, health insurance, and something that felt like stability. But the dealership closed down 3 years ago, outsourced the jobs, left a lot of good people with nothing. Marcus tried to find another shop that would take him on full-time, but most places were cutting back or hiring younger guys for less pay. So he started doing side work, fixing cars out of his driveway, oil changes, brake jobs, engine diagnostics, whatever people needed. He charged fair prices, sometimes too fair, because he knew what it felt like to be broke and desperate. Word got around the neighborhood that Marcus was good and honest, and that kept a trickle of work coming in. But a trickle wasn't enough. Not with rent due on the first. Not with 2 growing girls who needed shoes and school supplies and groceries that seemed to cost more every single week. Some nights, Marcus would sit at the kitchen table after the girls went to bed, surrounded by past due notices and bills he'd been shuffling around for months, trying to figure out which one he could push off a little longer. The power company, the water bill, the landlord who was getting less patient. He'd rub his eyes and feel the weight of it all pressing down. But every morning he'd get up, make breakfast for his daughters, pack their lunches, walk them to the bus stop, and tell them everything was going to be okay. Because that's what fathers do. You carry it so they don't have to. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late September when everything changed. Marcus had just finished replacing a starter motor on a neighbor's truck, his hands covered in grease, his back aching from leaning over the engine. The sun was starting to dip low, casting long shadows across the driveway. He was wiping his hands on an old rag when he heard his phone buzz. It was the school. Amara had a mild fever and needed to be picked up. Marcus sighed, checked the time, and told them he'd be there in 20 minutes. He cleaned up quickly, grabbed his keys, and headed out. He was driving down Old Chapel Hill Road, a 2-lane stretch that wound through some of the older neighborhoods and past a few farms, when he saw her. A woman standing next to a car on the shoulder, hood up, emergency flashers blinking. She was older, maybe in her 60s, dressed in a cream-colored blouse and dark slacks, looking frustrated and worried. Marcus slowed down. He thought about his daughter waiting at school. He thought about how he didn't have time for this. But he also thought about his own mother, who had passed away 5 years ago, and how many times strangers had helped her when her car broke down. He couldn't just drive past. He pulled over and got out. The woman looked up, cautious at first. The way people are when a stranger approaches. Marcus kept his distance, kept his voice calm and respectful. He asked if she needed help. She hesitated, then nodded. Her name was Eleanor. She said the engine just died on her, no warning, no stuttering, just gone. She'd called a tow truck, but they said it would be at least 2 hours. She had an appointment she couldn't miss. She was trying not to panic, but Marcus could see it in her eyes. He walked over to the car, a late-model sedan, clean and well-maintained. He asked if he could take a look. She said yes. Marcus leaned under the hood, checked the basics. Battery connections were fine. He turned the key, listened. No click, no crank. He traced a few wires, pulled a relay, tested it. Then he found it. A blown fuel pump relay? Simple fix if you had the part. He didn't. But he knew a trick. He pulled the relay for the horn, swapped it with the fuel pump relay. It was a temporary patch. Wouldn't last forever. But it would get her where she needed to go. He told Eleanor to try starting it. She turned the key. The engine roared to life. Her face lit up with relief so pure it almost brought tears to her eyes. She stepped out of the car, thanked him over and over, asked what she owed him. Marcus shook his head. He said he was just glad he could help. She insisted. He said no, really, it was nothing. She looked at him for a long moment, something unreadable in her expression, then reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. She said if he ever needed anything, call her. Marcus took the card, barely glanced at it, slipped it into his pocket. They said their goodbyes. She drove off. He got back in his truck and went to pick up his daughter. That night, after he'd gotten Amara home, given her some medicine, made dinner, and tucked both girls into bed, Marcus sat down on the couch and finally pulled out the business card. It was simple, elegant, just a name, Eleanor Hastings, and a phone number. No company name, no title. He turned it over. Nothing. He shrugged and set it on the kitchen counter, figuring he'd probably never call. The next morning started like any other. Marcus got the girls ready for school, walked them to the bus, came back home and started cleaning up the driveway so he could work on a transmission job someone had dropped off the day before. The sky was overcast, heavy clouds threatening rain. He was pulling tools out of his chest when he heard the sound, low, rumbling, multiple engines. He looked up. 12 black SUVs were rolling down his street in a slow, perfect line. Neighbors stepped out onto their porches. A couple of kids stopped riding their bikes. Everyone was watching. The SUVs pulled up in front of Marcus's house, engines idling, windows tinted black. Marcus's stomach dropped. His first thought was police. Then federal agents. Then something worse. His mind raced. Had he done something wrong? Was someone coming for him? He stood frozen, wrench still in his hand. The front door of the lead SUV opened. A man in a dark suit stepped out. Then another. Then the back door opened and Eleanor stepped out. Marcus blinked. It didn't make sense. She walked toward him with a calm, confident stride, a slight smile on her face. The men in suits flanked her but kept a respectful distance. She stopped a few feet from Marcus and said hello like they were old friends. Marcus couldn't find words. Eleanor gestured to the SUVs. She said she wanted to thank him properly. She said what he did yesterday. Stopping to help a stranger meant more than he could know. She told him she was the founder and CEO of a private foundation that worked with underserved communities, funding small businesses, supporting families in need, creating opportunities where there weren't any. She said she'd been on her way to a meeting with state officials about a new initiative when her car broke down. She said Marcus didn't just fix her car. He reminded her why she did the work she did. He reminded her that kindness still existed. Marcus stammered something about it being no big deal. Eleanor shook her head. She said it was a very big deal. Then she told him what she'd done. After she left him yesterday, she looked him up, found out about his situation, talked to neighbors, learned about his girls, his struggle, his reputation as someone who helped people even when he had nothing. She said she wanted to invest in him. Not charity, investment. She wanted to help him open a real shop. A garage with equipment, a lift, proper tools, a space where he could hire other people and build something lasting. She said her foundation would cover the startup costs, the first year of rent, and help him with business planning. She said all he had to do was say yes. Marcus felt his throat tighten. His vision blurred. He looked at the SUVs, at the men in suits, at this woman who 24 hours ago had been a stranger on the side of the road. He thought about his daughters. He thought about all the nights he'd stayed up worrying. He thought about his mother, who used to tell him that good things come to people who do good in the world, even when it's hard, even when nobody's watching. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. He nodded. That was all he could manage. Just a nod. Eleanor smiled. She said they'd be in touch with all the details. She said take care of those girls. Then she got back into the SUV. The engines rumbled to life. And just like that, the 12 black SUVs rolled away, disappearing down the street as quietly as they'd come. Marcus stood there in his driveway, neighbors staring, rain starting to fall, tears streaming down his face. 3 months later, Marcus opened the doors to his own shop. It was a small building on the south side of town, freshly painted with 2 hydraulic lifts, a full set of diagnostic equipment, and a sign out front that read, Marcus and Daughters Auto Repair. Amara and Zoe helped him pick the name. They were so proud they told everyone at school. Marcus hired 2 other technicians, both men from the neighborhood who'd been out of work for too long. Word spread fast. People came because they'd heard Marcus was honest. They stayed because he was good. Eleanor came to the grand opening. She didn't make a big deal about it, didn't want any attention. She just walked in, shook Marcus's hand, and told him she was proud. She said this was exactly what her foundation was meant to do. Not handouts, partnerships, opportunities, belief. Marcus thanked her again, for the 100th time. She told him to thank himself. She said all she did was open the door. He was the one who walked through it. The shop became more than a business. It became a place where people felt seen. Marcus never forgot what it was like to be struggling. So he worked with people on payment plans, offered discounts to single parents and seniors, gave free oil changes to veterans. He started a program where high school kids could come in after school and learn basic automotive skills, get hands-on experience, maybe find a path to a career. He wanted to give back the way someone had given to him. His daughters grew up watching their father build something from nothing. They saw him work hard, treat people with respect, show up even on the tough days. Amara started talking about becoming an engineer. Zoe said she wanted to help people like her dad did. Marcus would listen to them talk about their dreams and feel a swell of pride so big it almost hurt, because he knew they believed in themselves. And they believed in themselves because he'd shown them it was possible. He'd shown them that struggle doesn't define you. How you rise from it does. Years later, when someone asked Marcus about that day the SUVs showed up, he'd get quiet for a moment. Then he'd say it wasn't really about the money or the shop. It was about being seen. It was about a moment of kindness that rippled out farther than he ever imagined. It was about stopping for a stranger even when you're tired. Even when you have your own problems. Because that's what humanity is. That's what community is. We help each other. We see each other. We lift each other up. And sometimes, when you least expect it, the universe gives back. If this story touched you, I hope you'll take a moment to share it. Leave a comment about a time someone helped you when you needed it most, or a time you helped someone else. These stories matter. These voices matter. Your voice matters, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Black Voices and be part of this community. We're here to remind each other that kindness is real, that resilience is powerful, and that even in the hardest moments, hope can find a way through. Marcus's story is just one of millions, but it's proof that one act of decency, one moment of seeing another human being and choosing to care, can change everything. Not just for them, for you too. Because when we give, we grow. When we connect, we heal. And when we listen to each other's voices, we remember what it means to be alive. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted.